Buried beneath one of Egypt's holiest sites lies the Osirion, an underground chamber deliberately flooded, engineered with stone channels and water control systems that shouldn't exist at all. It doesn't match Egypt's timelines, it doesn't match their tools, and it definitely doesn't match their technology. Hidden near Abydos, the Osirion uses massive granite blocks, precision-cut trenches, and controlled groundwater flow in ways modern engineers still debate. For decades, it was brushed off as symbolic, a myth in stone. But new analysis suggests something far more unsettling. It was built to function, not to honor the dead. Before we go any deeper, tap like and subscribe, because what this site reveals is forcing experts to quietly rethink who really mastered engineering first, who built the Osirion, and why its technology appears impossibly advanced, is where this story truly begins. The sacred city of Abydos. Before we dive into the terrifying mystery of the Osirion itself, you need to understand where this structure is located and why that matters. Abydos, Egypt, isn't just another ancient site, it's the world's oldest religious site, steeped in mystery that goes back to the very dawn of Egyptian civilization. This city was the first capital of ancient Egypt, built during the time of the earliest pharaohs, long before the Great Pyramids rose from the desert sands. For thousands of years, pilgrims from across the ancient world would make the dangerous journey to Abydos to participate in sacred rituals that reenacted the death and resurrection of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed that the mountains to the west of Abydos contained a mystical gateway, a portal through which the souls of the dead would pass to reunite with Osiris in the afterlife. This wasn't just religious belief. The ancient Egyptians chose this specific location for a reason. They knew something about this place that we're only now beginning to rediscover. And what we're finding is absolutely terrifying. In 1902, when renowned archaeologists Flinders Petrie and Margaret Murray first began excavating at Abydos, they expected to find another temple, another tomb, another piece of Egypt's well-documented history. Instead, they uncovered something that would haunt the archaeological community for the next 120 years. As they dug deeper and deeper, removing tons of sand that had accumulated over millennia, they realized something was terribly wrong. The structure emerging from beneath the earth wasn't like anything they'd ever seen before in all their years of studying ancient Egypt. The Osirion, as it came to be called, was officially attributed to Pharaoh Seti I, who ruled Egypt from 1294 to 1279 BCE. Cartouches bearing Seti's name were found throughout the site, and conventional archaeology insisted this was part of Seti's funeral complex, designed to resemble a tomb from the 18th dynasty Valley of the Kings. But the architecture told a completely different story, one that modern experts are now terrified to confront publicly. The architectural impossibility. Here's what makes the Osirion so deeply unsettling to anyone who studies it carefully. Unlike every other structure attributed to Seti I or any other New Kingdom pharaoh, the Osirion was built much, much lower than the foundations of Seti's temple. We're not talking about a few feet. This structure was constructed at a depth that suggests it was either built thousands of years before Seti's time, or the ground level of ancient Egypt was drastically different than we've been taught. The architecture itself is completely unique in all of Egypt. While typical Egyptian temples feature decorated columns, intricate carvings, and hieroglyphic inscriptions covering every surface, the Osirion is stark, massive, and eerily minimal. It features enormous stone blocks, precise joints that you couldn't slide a piece of paper between, and a complete absence of the round pillars found in other Egyptian structures, except for one, the Valley Temple in Giza, which itself is shrouded in controversy about its true age. Think about that connection for a moment. The only other structure in all of Egypt that shares this architectural style is at Giza, home to the Great Pyramid, another monument whose construction remains unexplained by modern engineering. An engineering nightmare that keeps scientists awake. Now we get to the part that truly terrifies modern engineers and makes this mystery exponentially more disturbing. The Osirion was constructed using massive rose granite blocks, some weighing up to 100 tons each. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to about 16 full-grown African elephants per block. These impossibly heavy stones were somehow transported from Aswan, located an astonishing 200 miles away through harsh desert terrain. But here's where the nightmare really begins. These colossal stones weren't just moved 200 miles across the desert. They were transported to a location several miles from the Nile River, the only waterway that could have potentially aided in moving such massive weights. Then somehow they were lowered deep into the ground and positioned with laser-like precision in an underground structure. Modern engineers have tried to recreate how this could have been accomplished using the tools available to ancient Egyptians: copper chisels, wooden sledges, and rope. Every attempt has failed spectacularly. There are no ramps leading down into the structure, no evidence of the massive earthworks that would have been necessary, no signs of the thousands upon thousands of workers such a project would require, no tool marks indicating how these granite blocks were shaped with such impossible precision. Just perfect construction that seems to defy not only the technological limitations of ancient Egypt, but the very laws of physics as we understand them. The complex design that shouldn't exist. The architectural sophistication of the Osirion adds yet another layer to this deepening puzzle. The site features a complex double-layered roofing system and approximately a dozen interconnected chambers. The central structure consists of a stone-paved island surrounded by chambers and a deep water basin. Access to this mysterious complex is through a 69-meter-long, stone-lined passage that slopes gently downward, leading visitors deeper and deeper into the earth. The western wall of this corridor is adorned with inscriptions from the Book of Gates, while the eastern wall displays carvings from the Book of What Is in the Underworld. Though curiously, these seem to be unfinished, abandoned mid-creation for reasons we can only speculate about. When Margaret Murray continued excavations in 1903, she discovered that the smaller southern chamber featured carvings from the 168th chapter of the Book of the Dead, describing the king worshipping the gods of the 12 caverns. The chamber originally had a roof made of massive stone beams, but these were stolen long ago, leaving only the mystery of how such enormous beams were placed there in the first place. The intricate interlocking of wedges, the meticulous stacking of massive blocks, the sophisticated understanding of weight distribution and structural integrity. All of this suggests a level of engineering knowledge that we simply don't attribute to ancient Egyptian civilization, which we're told relied on primitive copper tools and brute force labor. Moreover, the extensive use of granite throughout the structure is deeply puzzling. Granite is far more difficult to work with than the limestone typically used in Egyptian construction. It requires harder tools, more sophisticated cutting techniques, and greater engineering knowledge. Yet the Osirion features precision granite work that modern stonemasons struggle to replicate even with diamond-tipped power tools. The water that shouldn't exist. Now we arrive at the real secret, the discovery that's keeping researchers awake at night and challenging everything we think we know about physics, geology, and ancient engineering. Deep within the Osirion flows water. Not just any water, but water that behaves in ways that completely violate our understanding of natural laws and physical principles. Enter James Westerman, a dedicated researcher, historian, and archaeologist who has devoted several decades of his life to unraveling the mysteries of the Osirion. His fascination began during his first expedition to Abydos in 1986, and what he's discovered since then is nothing short of terrifying. In his quest to identify the water source, Westerman and his team started with ground-penetrating radar, attempting to map what lay beneath the visible structure. What they found made no sense. The readings suggested the structure extended far deeper than anyone had imagined, but they couldn't locate bedrock, the solid rock foundation that should exist beneath any structure. Determined to reach the source, Westerman brought in powerful dewatering pumps capable of removing water at extraordinary rates. When his team pumped water out at 500 gallons per minute, that's nearly 1,900 liters, they expected to eventually empty the chamber and reveal what lay beneath. They couldn't even make a dent. The water refilled faster than they could remove it, as if some impossible underground river was feeding the structure with unlimited flow. But here's the truly disturbing part. Comprehensive ground-penetrating radar scans, advanced seismic technology, and deep well scans all confirmed the same terrifying finding. There's no bedrock beneath the structure. Nothing. Just water, flowing from an origin that our most advanced technology cannot detect or explain. The depths we cannot reach. Modern seismic technology has revealed something even more chilling about what lies beneath the Osirion. The structure extends at least 50 feet below the current floor level that we can see and access. But that's just what we can measure. The seismic tests have detected hollow chambers within that depth, rooms, passages, spaces that remain completely flooded and inaccessible. What's hidden down there? What artifacts, what knowledge, what evidence of who really built this structure remains sealed beneath water that we cannot remove? Think about that for a moment. We have rovers on Mars. We've sent probes to the outer edges of our solar system. We've split the atom and mapped the human genome. Yet here on Earth, just a few dozen feet beneath the Egyptian desert, exist chambers we cannot reach, secrets we cannot uncover, because water flows from a source we cannot find and refills faster than we can pump it out. The Egyptian government has installed pumps to continuously remove water, but it's a losing battle. Archaeologists remain completely unable to explore these depths, to examine what the ancient builders, whoever they were, might have hidden in those sealed chambers. The stairs to nowhere. Adding to this mystery, excavations revealed something deeply unsettling about the structure's original design. On both sides of the inner central hall of the Osirion, archaeologists discovered stairs leading down into the water. These weren't simple steps. They were carefully constructed, precisely carved staircases clearly meant to provide access to something below. When researcher Henry Frankfurt managed to temporarily pump out the water in the 1930s, he made a shocking discovery. No pavement was found at a depth of about 24 feet below the ledge, where the last step of the staircase was installed. The stairs just kept going, descending into depths that remained flooded. Frankfurt believed these stairs led down to the dense geological layers, where underground water circulated, possibly marking the start of the lowest masonry of the Osirion's original foundation. But think about what that implies. The structure we can see today might be just the top portion of something much, much larger. What were the ancient builders accessing by descending those stairs? What rituals or functions required going deeper into the earth, into chambers now permanently sealed by water? The impossible physics. In 2023, advanced monitoring devices called Aquatrol 200 CD loggers revealed something that shook the scientific community to its core. The water in the Osirion has a unique chemical composition and isotopic profile completely different from surrounding water sources. It's not coming from the Nile, it's not coming from the local aquifer. So, where is it coming from? Even more disturbing, the water appears to be under pressure, flowing upward like a geyser, but there's no bedrock to channel it. The water around the structure measures 16.9 degrees Celsius, but inside the chamber, it reaches 23.8 degrees Celsius. This violates the second law of thermodynamics, which states heat cannot spontaneously flow from a cooler area to a warmer one. Something is heating this water from below. Something we cannot detect or explain. The healing waters of Abydos. Here's where this already bizarre story takes an even stranger and more mystical turn. After conducting his water quality tests, James Westerman began filtering the Osirion's water to make it drinkable. Being a thorough researcher and perhaps a bit of a daredevil, he decided to drink it himself to see if there was anything unusual about it. At first, he noticed the water had no distinct taste. It was clean, pure, unremarkable. So he continued drinking this filtered water regularly during his research stays at Abydos. Then, after a while, something absolutely extraordinary happened. Westerman's eyesight, which had been poor since he was a child, requiring him to wear corrective glasses for most of his life, began to improve. At first, he thought he was imagining it, but the improvement continued, becoming more and more noticeable. Finally, he visited an optometrist for a comprehensive eye examination. The test confirmed what he'd been experiencing. His vision had improved so dramatically that he no longer needed glasses at all. Since that discovery, Westerman has continued drinking the Osirion's water whenever he visits the site, completely convinced of its healing properties. Now, before you dismiss this as coincidence or placebo effect, remember that ancient texts and historical records describe Abydos as a sacred healing site. For thousands of years, pilgrims traveled vast distances to visit this exact location, believing in its restorative and mystical properties. Were the ancient Egyptians accessing this water? Did they know something about its unique properties that modern science is only now beginning to rediscover? Is this why they built such an elaborate and sophisticated structure here, to access and protect this extraordinary water source? The ancient aquifer mystery. Recent geological surveys conducted by Dr. James Brooks and Dr. Bahai Issa as part of Westerman's project uncovered a surprising new theory about the source of the Osirion's groundwater that challenges decades of previous research. Their findings, detailed in comprehensive geological reports, suggest the groundwater in the Osirion doesn't flow directly from the Nile River as researchers like Frankfurt had previously theorized. Instead, the water comes from an ancient aquifer within the Kina Sand Formation, a layer of fossil water deposited between 10,000 and 5,000 years ago. This fossil water flows from the eastern side of the Western Desert toward the Nile Valley, following ancient underground channels carved over millennia. The water level in this aquifer is unpredictable and influenced by complex geological factors. But here's what makes this discovery so significant and disturbing. This means the water flowing into the Osirion is between 5,000 and 10,000 years old. It's ancient water, trapped underground for millennia, now flowing through a structure that might be equally ancient. When the Nile's water level is exceptionally high, it can affect this ancient aquifer, adding another variable that influences groundwater height in the Osirion. But the primary source remains this prehistoric water, flowing from depths and origins that predate recorded human history. An older civilization? The most terrifying theory of all. The Osirion wasn't built by Seti I's workers at all. They merely discovered it. Evidence suggests the structure dates to the early 4th dynasty, possibly built by Khufu himself, or perhaps something even older. Pottery from the Archaic period and early Old Kingdom was found at the very bottom of excavations. Then nothing, until pottery from the 30th dynasty appeared near ground level, suggesting the monument was buried in sand for thousands of years. The limestone enclosure shows distinct patterns of water erosion that some researchers argue could only have formed if the structure was built before the end of the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago, when the region had a much wetter climate. Evidence of extreme age. The limestone enclosure surrounding the Osirion displays distinct patterns of weathering and erosion that have sparked intense debate among geologists and archaeologists. Some researchers argue that these erosion patterns could only have formed if the structure was exposed to water over extended periods, not the occasional flooding from the Nile, but sustained exposure to rainfall and running water. The problem? Egypt hasn't experienced that kind of wet climate in recorded history. You'd have to go back to before the end of the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago, when the Sahara was green and the region experienced regular, heavy rainfall. If these researchers are correct, the Osirion would predate ancient Egyptian civilization by thousands of years. This theory would explain the structure's unique architecture, its advanced engineering, and why it's so completely different from every other known Egyptian monument. It wasn't built by the Egyptians at all. They inherited it from whoever came before. The absence that speaks volumes. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Osirion is what's not there. Unlike every other Egyptian temple and monument ever discovered, the Osirion contains virtually no hieroglyphs celebrating pharaohs, no artwork depicting gods and rituals, no decorative elements that are the hallmark of Egyptian religious architecture. The Karnak temple complex in Luxor, for comparison, features extensive hieroglyphic inscriptions covering every available surface, depicting pharaohs' victories, religious ceremonies, and mythological scenes. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains hieroglyphs, narrating the pharaoh's divine ascent to the afterlife. But the Osirion, it stands silent, stark, and bare. The only inscriptions found are in the entrance corridor, added later, clearly not part of the original construction. The main chambers, the massive granite blocks, the mysterious water basin all remain unmarked, undecorated, offering no clues about their true purpose. This absence is deafening. It suggests the Osirion served a function so fundamentally different from typical Egyptian religious structures that it required no explanation, no dedication, no identification at all. Why? What was this place really used for that it needed no religious decoration, no historical record, no commemoration of the pharaoh who supposedly built it? The underground network, recent geological surveys by Dr. James Brooks and Dr. Bahai Issa revealed something even more shocking. The groundwater doesn't come from the Nile at all. It flows from an ancient aquifer within the Kina sand, filled with fossil water from 10,000 to 5,000 years ago, flowing from the eastern desert toward the Nile Valley. But excavations revealed something even more disturbing: an underground conduit system running beneath the Temple of Seti I. Drill tests found a constructed channel about 90 centimeters deep with a limestone roof and bed. Further drilling discovered granite fragments at depth, granite that had to be brought in, as no natural granite bed exists in the area. This wasn't just a well. It was a sophisticated hydraulic system designed to channel water from the Nile to the Osirion through underground passages. The ancient Greek geographer Strabo described it as the well or fountain of Abydos, situated at great depth with corridors featuring ceilings made of enormous monolithic blocks. Sophisticated hydraulic engineering. The hydraulic system of the Osirion represents engineering knowledge that simply shouldn't exist in ancient Egypt, according to our current historical timeline. The intricate network of channels, basins, and potential sluices were meticulously designed to control and manipulate water flow within the complex. The precision in their design and execution reflects a profound understanding of hydraulic engineering principles, the dynamics of water flow, pressure management, gradient calculation, and fluid mechanics. While the ancient Egyptians certainly understood basic irrigation and used the Nile's annual flooding for agriculture through simple canals and basins, the Osirion's hydraulic system showcases an entirely different level of sophistication. We're talking about a system designed to channel water from the Nile through underground conduits across several miles of desert, managing pressure and flow to fill specific chambers at specific depths, all without pumps or mechanical assistance. Modern hydraulic engineers who've studied the system admit they're baffled by how it works. The water continues to flow, maintains its pressure, and regulates its own temperature through mechanisms we cannot identify. The L-shaped mystery. The Temple of Seti I, above the Osirion, features an unusual L-shaped configuration that completely diverges from typical Egyptian temple architecture. Conventional Egyptian temples follow linear, rectangular layouts aligned with astronomical features and cardinal directions. But Seti's temple bends, creating an L shape that makes no architectural or religious sense unless it was built to accommodate something already there. One theory suggests that during construction, builders unexpectedly encountered the ancient Osirian structure beneath the site. Imagine the workers excavating foundations, following their carefully planned rectangular design, when suddenly they hit massive granite blocks from a structure they never knew existed. They would have had no choice but to adapt their plans, creating the L-shaped temple to work around the ancient construction beneath. This forced adaptation would explain the temple's unusual design and its unusual alignment. But this raises a profound question. What are the odds of accidentally constructing a temple directly on top of another buried temple? Is it possible this wasn't an accident at all? Ancient Egyptian architecture was deeply intertwined with celestial alignments and astronomical observations. Egyptian priests and architects carefully chose building sites based on geographical and astronomical significance. Perhaps they intentionally selected this location precisely because they knew about the ancient structure beneath. Perhaps through oral tradition, ancient records, or archaeological discoveries of their own. This suggests they deliberately layered their construction, aiming to align their new temple with the older underlying structure, integrating the new with the ancient foundations in a way that honored and preserved what came before. The research continues. The Egyptian government currently maintains pumps at the Osirion to continuously remove water, fighting a losing battle against the mysterious source that refills the chambers faster than they can be emptied. These pumps were scheduled to be turned off at the end of November, allowing water levels to return to their natural state during the winter months. Westerman eagerly awaited this opportunity to observe how the aquifer devices would respond to natural water cycles without human intervention. We're trying to understand what we're seeing, and it's really puzzling us, Westerman admits, with striking honesty. The things we're noticing can't be explained with what we currently know, but thanks to the in situ devices, we can closely watch changes in the water chemistry, which has been very helpful. Water samples from the Osirion and comparison wells have been sent to Egyptian laboratories for comprehensive analysis. Researchers are testing chemical composition, isotopic signatures, mineral content, and other properties that might reveal the water's true origin. But Westerman knows that more data is needed before any solid conclusions can be drawn. Each answer seems to generate 3 new questions. Each mystery solved reveals deeper mysteries beneath. It's been one mystery after another, he says, summarizing decades of research that have only deepened the enigma rather than solving it. And after 120 years of study, deploying our most advanced technology involving the world's leading experts in archaeology, geology, engineering, and physics, we still cannot answer the most basic questions about the Osirion. We don't know how it was built. We don't know its true age. We don't know the source of its water. We don't know what mechanism heats that water. We don't know what lies in the chambers below. We don't know why it was built or what its real purpose was. And perhaps most disturbing of all, we don't know if we'll ever find out. The Osirion stands as a monument to human ignorance, a testament to how much we still don't understand about our own history. It's a physical reminder that ancient civilizations might have possessed knowledge and capabilities that we've lost, forgotten, or never acknowledged in the first place. The ancient Egyptians made Abydos the world's most sacred pilgrimage site for over 3,000 years. They believed the mountains west of the city contained a gateway through which souls would pass to reunite with Osiris in the afterlife. They built elaborate temples, conducted sacred rituals, and traveled vast distances to worship at this specific location. What if they were protecting something? What if the Osirion wasn't just a temple, or a tomb, or a reservoir, but something else entirely? Something we're not equipped to understand with our current framework of knowledge. What if the water isn't just water, but something our ancestors recognized as sacred, healing, transformative? What if the structure wasn't designed to withstand millennia of burial under sand, but was deliberately built underground from the beginning, meant to be accessed only by those who knew the secret?